Hey guys, Chad Smith here with worshiptoolkit.com, and today I want to show you how to use the Line6 FBV Shortboard MKII with Ableton Live. I'm going to show you how to set it up. Now here at our church we have a couple of other MIDI boards that we use. We have the KMI Soft Step and we also have the Looptimus, and we love those boards, but we needed another solution, a less expensive solution for some of our other campuses. So I found these. I found two of them for $100 each on GuitarCenter.com. So I would highly suggest it. It's got a few limitations that we're going to talk about, but it also has a few features that the other two boards don't have. So let's dive in and find out how it works. All right, now we're in our computer, and the first thing that I want to let you know is that you need to download the software Line6 FBV Control from the Line6 website. It's free software. You can just download it and control. There's another piece of software called Line6 Monkey that will upgrade the firmware, update the firmware if you need that, if you buy your unit used like I did. So you want to download that as well. Make sure that your firmware is all updated, and then you can get going. So the first thing that you want to see is that I've already set this session up so that all of my buttons, no matter what they say on the board, they're all going to be MIDI commands here. You can see it right here in this section. So what you want to do is click MIDI command here, MIDI CC. Make sure all of them say MIDI command, and then just you can set the value. I started at number 20 because it's an open, all of those are open. So started at number 20 through 26, port number 1, channel number 1, and then notice that all of them except the function 2 are listed as momentary, selected as momentary. So that's the way you want it to be. I'll explain why that one function 2 button, this button right here, is a toggle button in just a moment. But you get to use all of the buttons on this board, including the pedal here for volume or whatever you want to, so I'll explain that. So this is all set up. I'm going to put it down in the screen, the bottom of the screen, so you can see what we're looking at here, and I'll refer back to this section. But let's go over to live here. The way you want to set up the MIDI function here is the FBV Shortboard should show up in all of your control surface preferences. You want the input to say FBV Shortboard. You want the output to say none. And down in the bottom here, in the ports, the only one that you need to have on is the remote of port 1. That's the only one that you really need to have on. So that way you know that that live is being controlled by the FBV Shortboard. So now I'll get this out there a little bigger so you can see what's going on. All right, so I've got 3 songs here listed in in live here. This is Chris Tomlin's Our God. The second one here is This I Believe from Hillsong, and the third is Oceans from Hillsong United. And we're going to assign all the MIDI functions to buttons on the shortboard. So click your MIDI button up in the top right hand corner, and then we're going to assign all of these functions to the shortboard. You notice that I've got some locators here in the top. Yep, there we go. Let me turn that off now. You notice that I've got some locators already assigned here at the top for my different songs and different sections of the song. We're going to assign those to buttons on the shortboard, and we're going to assign some other functions that are going to be really useful to us. So let's get started. Click your MIDI button here at the top, your first locator, and let's just go ahead and assign that to button A. So I'm going to click button A. There it is. The note control is assigned right there to button A. I'm going to go to song number 2 and just assign it to button B down here. So there it is, button B. Let's scroll over a little bit and get song number 3 to button C. Now one of the things that I might want to do is here in Our God, what if I want to repeat the section at the end? And if our God is for us, if I want to repeat that section, I've already got a locator set up to do that, and I'm going to assign that to this button here. That way I've got song 1 at the bottom here, and I've got the repeat of that chorus or bridge here on this button. So let's go and assign that. There it is, it's assigned. The next thing that I might want to assign are the play and stop buttons, because in this view, in this view of live, you have to have a play button, and obviously you'll want a stop button just in case things get wonky. So let's assign the play button to the top here. It's assigned. Stop button to the one right next to it. There we go. This button here, now you get to understand why I set this button to a toggle switch. This button is going to be our loop button. This is the loop function right here, and I'll explain why I'm doing that in just a second. But let's go ahead and assign it first. Now it's assigned. What else do we want to assign? How about we assign the tap tempo and the metronome on and off, because sometimes we want the metronome that is listed in our loop. See, this one doesn't have a loop, this one does, so let's set our tap temp or our metronome button to be this button right here. And we'll set the tap tempo to be this button right here. Okay, those are all set. You see them located here. No problem. So now let's explain a little bit why we've set these functions. Let's turn our MIDI button off, and we'll explain what these do. The loop function here is, this is the way this works. I have this session set up so that when Our God ends, a transition loop that's just a little bit of just a transition texture, sound, pad, whatever you want to call it, is going to play in the background. You can hear it here. Here we go. Here's the ending, and it fades in. There it is, fading right in. Okay, that's really nice. And what if I want that to loop while we pray or something like that? I want to turn my loop on, and as soon as it gets to this section, it'll just loop that pad for as long as I want it to. Then when I'm ready to go to my next song, I can just click my next button and move on. But I want that loop function to work, so I've assigned that to this here, this button on the shortboard, and then we can move on. So we've got our loop looping, but when we click that button again, it turns off, and as soon as it gets to the end of that loop, it should move on, and we can go to song number 2. There we go. 1, 2. And we're on to song number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go back to that loop function for a second, though. And what if we're playing in there and we just decide that it's done and we want to just volume down, but we don't want to just hard stop? That sounds awkward. Just that hard stop right in the middle of the set sounds awkward. So we want that. What if we want it to be a volume down function? Well, we can use our shortboard pedal here to do exactly that. I'm going to switch over to the other view. Here's my master volume. Turn my MIDI back on. And now that pedal, what I did was I touched this, and on the button, or on the shortboard, I touched the pedal there, and now that function is assigned to the master volume. Problem is that it's also set to go from infinity down to all the way up to +6. So let's go ahead and change that just in case to a 0 so that it goes to unity and no further. So now if I need the volume to go down, I can volume down, or I can volume up, and it'll only go to unity. Maybe I don't want it that far, but now I can use my volume pedal to affect that loop for as long as I need it to before we move on to the next song. Okay? That's just a quick explanation of how we can use the MIDI, the Line 6 MIDI shortboard, the FBV Shortboard MKII, to assign all of the MIDI functions in live. Now here's one of the major drawbacks to the FBV shortboard, and that is that it cannot do bank up and bank down. It does not understand different banks, so that all of these buttons can only be used really for one function. You can't have a bank up and then use this for a separate set of songs. That's the major limitation with this shortboard, and I haven't figured out a way to get around that. If you understand a way to get around that and can explain it to me, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Please let me know. Other than that, that's how you use the Line 6 FBV shortboard with Ableton Live to run all of its MIDI functions. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.